undergrad students. So we go back, we can literally say we've been talking to kids about engineering for about 25 years, which is awesome. We don't get to say that very much at our age. And this community action partnership is something we're really excited to do. So let's just get started, I guess. Tell you a little bit about Engineers of Tomorrow. As Kenny mentioned, we're affiliated with EWD Canada, and I know Kevin has also been involved. I think a few of the others of you have been involved with EWD as well. Fantastic organization. And let's go in order. Maybe I'll tell you the introduction. We're going to talk about ourselves, what we're doing here today. We're going to, because you're going to be going into classrooms and working with kids and getting them doing hands-on experiences of engineering and other STEM fields, we're going to give you a little bit of a taste of that to have that empathy to walk in with. So we're going to get you out of your chairs, get those laptops off your laps, and yeah, sort of shake you out of your normal work routine. We're going to have some fun today, and then we're going to talk about the strategy behind what we're doing. It is fun, it is play, but believe it or not, there is also quite a bit of research and quite a bit of evidence. I know as STEM-type people, as engineers, we really like that data, and we like to see the reasons for why we're doing what we're doing from a design point of view. So instead of designing products or processes here today, we're designing experiences for kids, and we want to see what that will be, as we move forward. The kids of today are the engineers of tomorrow, and they're going to be picking up things and making decisions and solving problems and coming up with new products in the future. So we're really making a big investment here. Okay, storytelling and FAQs. So this is the team. There are 3 of us on board full time, and then we have some volunteers and our amazing bevy of summer students that have helped us out over the years. So just want to give you a sense of the people that have contributed to the work that we're going to present to you today. It's not just Becky and I. I started this as a bit of an experiment back in 2012 when I spoke to Engineers Without Borders Canada, and they said, look, we think there's a better way to talk about engineering. We think we can make it more innovative, more globally focused, more creative, more interesting than maybe the status quo is portraying right now. So that was sort of where it all started. Has anyone heard of National Engineering Month? You have. Amazing. When is National Engineering Month? March. Correct. This March is coming up right now. So Becky and I and our team, we're in charge of organizing National Engineering Month just for Ontario. And we're very proud and excited about this year's campaign. That is one of the things that we do in addition to some others. So anyway, we've got Becky, as I mentioned. She and I go way back. And then we've got Carrie, who just joined us from the UK, who's got a background. She actually used to work for Cambridge University, looking to improve the socioeconomic diversity of that very prestigious English university. She's got a background in country. Hi, welcome. Come on in.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Welcome. Oh, so you just need to tell me when you're going to jump in.
No, it's fine.
Okay. So just a little bit about us. We do partner with companies. We can say that officially now that we're working with P&G, professional associations. We also talk to teachers quite a lot because often, as Tanya mentioned, kids very early in life get an idea. This is who I am. This is what I'm good at. And parents and teachers are very influential people in the way that they present math and science and other related topics. And so we want to make sure that we're partnering with them to get them on the same page with us to be messaging engineering in a positive way. And we think, if you follow the long-term perspective, the strategy that we have here, if we talk about engineering differently today, we're influencing the pipeline and the kids that are going to opt in and become interested in a future in engineering, and that in turn is going to shift the direction of the engineering profession, which in turn is going to shift the direction of society. Because so much of what we do as engineers, designers, programmers, coders, that stuff pops through in all kinds of facets of real life and affects the daily experiences of young people. So our theory, and we're pretty sure, again, there's lots of research to back this up, is we have more diversity in that pipeline, we're going to have better outcomes for the future. So we're really talking about a very high impact thing, very good leverage point. A couple of other ways we think the engineering profession could improve. Ability to learn from failure, ability to innovate. You're supposed to be innovators, right? But I don't know how many of you have talked to the typical engineer these days. Sometimes there's a very analytical, risk-averse, very status quo-oriented mindset, and we really think that we can do better than that. We can add to that, take the strengths of that safety and that caution, and innovate on it in a better way. So to solve some of the most important problems of the 21st century. A lot of the technical problems have been solved already. The stuff that's left are the big, woolly, complex problems, systems-based problems that impact people across the world. So we're not just talking necessarily about making a faster car or a faster laptop. We're also talking about things like climate change and affordable housing and things that have a technical component but are also have a lot of different backgrounds required to solve them. So again, we talk about engineering outreach. Basically, we mean just talking to kids and the general public about engineering. If we do that differently, if we do that better, it can really shape the future. So that's why we do the best engineering outreach we know how to do. We don't just make stuff up. We do draw on our personal experiences, obviously, but we rely on evidence-based methods to make sure we're doing it in the best way possible. And we help other people do the same. So that includes all of you. It includes all of our volunteers for National Engineering Month, almost 2,000 people across Ontario alone, if you can believe it. And there are a few other programs that we've worked with as well. There we go. Okay, so I already mentioned National Engineering Month. Definitely check that out in your spare time in March if you would like to. We also manage the Engineering Residence Program, so that's another volunteer-based program. Anyone who's a PEng or an EIT with Professional Engineers Ontario can sign up. They get paired with the classroom and they go back many times throughout the school year. So it's sort of a similar thing to what you're doing now. I would say this is like a little taste of what being an EIR would be like on a smaller scale that's a bit more customized to your P&G circumstances. And then collaborating with companies to offer volunteer-based employee engagement and community service. That's why we're here today. All right. Over to Becky.
Okay, thanks, Erica. So a little bit about why we do it. I mean, we want to start off today thinking about why. The why for us is a really big deal. We don't want to just tell you guys, here, go and execute this activity, and we'll turn everybody into these STEM or engineer excited little beings. We really, really believe in connecting to that why. So you can see up on the screen here some of the whys that we've come across. Some of these are our own personal whys. No one encouraged me as a kid to take engineering, so we want to kind of give back. My own personal experience, I had teachers as parents. I didn't have any engineer role models, so as Erica mentioned, I got exposed to it with science class. So I think I'm a really great success story of what engineering outreach can do for someone. It can really just open their eyes. And I could have chosen any number of paths, but I thought back to this great, fun, positive experience that I had when I did science class. I loved it so much, I went back and I volunteered in high school, and then as Erica said, she hired me when I ended up going to Queen's. So that's a little bit about how I'm connected to that why. And we want to think about the whys, not just for ourselves, which is important, but also those other whys. So again, we see the potential in every young person to contribute to the world in a way that works for everyone. So maybe they're not going to decide to become an engineer or a STEM professional, but the fact that they're being exposed to engineering or STEM activity in a positive way with the specifically designed messaging that we've embedded into these activities means that when they grow up and go out into the world, they will just be a little bit more knowledgeable or literate around those topics. And so it just changes the kind of the culture of the general public that we're influencing. And then the engineers that are in their current roles, we see them as change agents, people that can be role models, capable to be those ones to go out and have that influence. It's not just about going to work every day and checking off boxes. And if that is what it's about for you, it can start to feel kind of monotonous, and you might forget about why you put all that hard work into all that schooling that you did and all that grind. So it's a way to start to give back to that greater, bigger picture. So I want to hear about some of your whys. I know some of you filled out a little bit of an intake survey that we asked you, thank you, Kevin, to send out for us. So I've seen some of the answers, but I'd like to just take a few minutes and start to get you guys thinking about your whys. Why did you decide to come here today? What excites you about this idea, this area? Any volunteers to start or share?
You want us to be able to bring in, and you want to know a little bit about our role?
Sure, that would be great, because we don't really know. I don't know, do you all know each other?
Yeah.
All right.
Why don't we do that?
I'll kick us off. Yeah, sure. So, my name's Tanya. I think I know you actually. So my background is in computer engineering. I've been with P&G for 12 years. I work now in emerging technologies, exponential innovation, AI, blockchain, all that good stuff, and how we use it. One of the things I see in my day-to-day role is how all of these new technologies are actually, they have the potential to democratize things for other communities, right? Who historically have been disadvantaged. Super exciting, right? So I get to do that in my day job as well, which is pretty cool. But it's very clear for me to see that there's a huge digital divide, right? And there's people who don't even realize that they're about to be impacted. So the reason I do it is because I want to be able to share the potential of what's coming. And I don't want people to think that engineering or science, technology, and math is so far away from them. I want them to be people who are regular, everyday people who've gone through the same struggles that they're going through, but have found the path through and can share that with them. So that's my why.
You're going down with like a Should we go this way? All right, so my name is Mina. Most of you guys know me. I'm an engineering student right now, and I'm working in product supply in the Walmart team. My why is kind of twofold. So the first part of it is, when I think of professions, I think of it in two aspects of it. Sort of a calling and sort of something that you nurture as well. So you kind of have like this instinctual thing that you're interested in, but it also has to be nurtured. So it's nice working that balance, especially with students and helping them figure out both sides of that. And the second aspect of it is, I think more than anything, engineering is a mindset. It's just a way to approach problems, and I think it's useful in any profession, so it'd be useful to anyone who's interested, whether they become engineers or not.
I love that one from nurturing.
Thanks.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin. I think you don't know me. I was from the University of Toronto. I graduated mechanical engineering. I just started PhD about 6 months ago. So I work in FSS, which is Financial Solutions and Services, in the BP&A area, which is Business Planning Analysis, most acronyms. So my why is kind of is like a big reason why I can get both these things. Because like when I was young, my parents were like, "Go be a doctor. Are you a doctor yet?" and that was like they kind of pushed me into it. And then like I was good at biology, so I was like, "Yeah, sure, I might as well do it." And that's like my plan in most of high school. And I went to this program called Shad Valley, and then that's when I was introduced to Engineers Without Borders. And then they came and they did like a water filter activity, but then they also talked about stories and how they got involved in engineering. And that was like my first exposure. I was already in grade 11 at that time. I was like, wow, this is actually something that I really enjoy. Exactly as Mina said, the mindset, problem solving, trying to find solutions to like other issues in the world, and it appealed to me a lot more than biology. And then so like because of that initial exposure to it, that's why like when I got home, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna go study engineering. And then here I am.
Cool. So you had a similar positive experience with Shad Valley.
Yes.
That's
right.
So my name is Rebecca Doe, and my background is actually in science, so with STEM, and I studied at the University of Waterloo in their science and business program. So I have two whys. One of my whys is being involved with recruiting at P&G. I have noticed that our female ratio is always somewhat of a challenge to really get it up there, right? So what I have thought about is that in order for us in our professional life to have a greater balance of female ratio, we really need to ensure that there's a great pipeline. And that's one of my biggest why of getting involved is to start from the very beginning, to start influencing the kids to fill that interest, so that later on, when we think about recruiting, there's going to be a healthy pipeline of females of people in general that are interested in a STEM career of some sort. My other why is, for my personal story, I always had somewhat of an interest in science growing up, and I remember very, very specifically in grade 9, I had an excellent experience with my grade 9 science teacher, and it was just being so curious about all the aspects of science. There were so many questions to solve and understand about this world. And to me, it was all about just understanding the world, understanding what's in the body and biology, how things in physics work. It just, that fascination really grew in me in grade 9. And that fascination kind of propelled me to pursue studies in science and studies in technology, what was new and fascinating. And I hope that by participating in this program that we can build and building the fascination in the kids today, so that in the future, hopefully the fascination will drive to something new.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Getting them to just ask questions, right? That's great. And we're going to talk, we have a whole section on inclusive messaging that we're going to talk to you guys about that will help you with your the girls in the family. Okay?
So my background is actually in publishing statistics, and I kind of want to explain all of this because I feel like for myself, I don't kind of realize the marketing is something very specifically different and just like software engineering and such. So I think it's good to just kind of start on the marketing.
Yeah, that's great. It's such a common thing in my experience, but I'm sure you just don't know what you don't know, right? And the kids don't know, and so this is just a great opportunity to increase that message to change that.
My name is Saeed. I'm a graduate student. I guess my why would be to have all the support for like that I want to do. From my dad, who's also an engineer, he kind of told me like everything about it, like what goes on, I can also do that. So I think kind of help other people figure out what they want to do and let them know more about the profession and the opportunities that are there that they can helpful for them and then they can figure out.
Yeah, that's really.
So my name is Aziza. I'm an analyst on Racing and Inventive, and I actually study industrial engineering this year right now, so I just pushed up my third year. And I think my reason why is because, well, it's a two-parter. I think part of it is what I mentioned, is the thought process. Like, I think everyone can find value in the thought process that you gain in engineering, but I think the other thing is that I think STEM is such an exciting space right now. There's so much going on, and it's very forward-thinking, it's very innovative, and it's very exciting. And I think a lot of people have misconceptions about the fact that STEM is like very analytical, like everything's very logical, like A, but there's actually so much creativity and so much room for that. And so I feel like a lot of those misconceptions are things that I want to be a part of the area.
Yeah, that's really kind of at the core of the design of that.
They get it.
I know.
They totally get it.
So I'm
It's
thinking,
awesome.
I know, so I was going to wait till you did your turn, but we have a whole section on storytelling, and I'm thinking, you guys are going to be awesome.
No, like actually, like, building on that point, it's so cool to learn about all these things that everyone shared. Like I didn't know about this, but we can know. Really cool. And I'm a person who values relationships, and I think that just made our relationship even stronger. My name is Medhaj, and I do mechanics city mechanical engineering at UC. Just like any other time I engineer, I work on our North American supply chain system and change everything. I can tell you about why I'm an engineer, and that could be the first part. The second part is why I'm a part of this. Why I'm an engineer, similar to Syed, my dad's an engineer, and literally, he was an engineer. And growing up in an Indian culture where engineering is really valued, it just pushed me to be an engineer. But the issue with that was that maybe I didn't think as I should have about choosing engineering. So, that leads on to my second part about why do I want to be part of like the Love Beach. It's because when I was in high school, I don't feel I received a lot of mentorship or was exposed to a lot of different opportunities that were available out there. And even in like the first year when I did engineering, I felt like the mentorship aspect was lacking. So
So I don't want that. It's similar to one of the points there. No one encouraged me to take engineering. So for me, it would be no one really mentored me in my early times of university. And I've seen how mentorship can be really impactful, and I want this to be an academic in which I can mentor. Yeah, I want to expose them to engineering, but I also just want to expose them to what they like and what they may not like, and help them make make them make a knowledgeable decision. So yeah, mentorship would be one of the reasons why.
Yeah, fantastic. So I loved all your answers. As I said, and Eric said, you guys already get it, I think. So we're really excited to help Army with some tools to be able to take this out and kind of put it into action. I do want to ask one more thing before I go.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, it's okay. I didn't really hear anyone talking about whys for Procter & Gamble. So we are here, and that's part of it too, right? So there's benefits for the students, there's benefits for you, there's benefits for the teachers, there's benefits for the community, there's benefits for Procter & Gamble as well. So any thoughts on why it's a great thing for Procter & Gamble to get involved?
I touched on it a little bit, and it's recruiting. I know that
yes,
still young,
yes.
But I hope Procter & Gamble will stick around for a little longer, so that eventually down the pipeline we will have a great pool of candidates. And definitely, yeah.
Another thing is what we really do here is we sell a lot of soap. So when students in high school, they think, what does P&G actually do? It's like, yeah, they gave me their shoulders. But it would be cool to see their ideas change once they see the type of work that actually goes into selling soap. And like shipping soap. Like I work in shipping soap, and it's actually much harder than it sounds. Like shipping soap. Like it's not like bringing a box of Gillette into like I don't know, Shoppers Drug Mart. No, like there's a whole like there's a lot of innovation. I'm sure it's in every part of the organization. So like being able to think of that mindset and being able to see the opportunities to apply that mindset into such a large and amazing organization as this company, I feel will be really valuable for us as students.
Yeah, fantastic. I have 3 young kids, and they would ask me. I worked for many years for a large pharmaceutical company, and my kids would ask me, "Mommy, like, what do you do at work?" And I'm like, like send me email. Like it's really hard to translate that information. I think that's a great why being able to help the general public, because they're going to go home and tell their moms and dads too, right? So what any other thoughts?
So yeah, I'll just add. I mean, one of the reasons why we want to sponsor this effort. I mean, obviously, you guys know we're all about like touching lives and doing things. Right? What maybe some people don't know, right, is that if you look across the globe, right, so we're not 152 countries. If you look across the globe, the type of work that actually goes on in each of those different areas could be relatively different versus if you're in an urban center versus if you're in one that's more rural, right? If you're in a developing nation versus a developed nation, right? There's a whole set of skills that are necessary to be able to make business happen in these places, right? A lot of those skills correlate actually to some of the behaviors that we touched on the previous slide of being agile, of being curious, right? Making linkages where there were no linkages, right? What we find is like people at P&G and also people have been able to kind of see where those things exist that maybe other people didn't see the connections and really drive value from it. So, I mean, on top of everything else, right? Like obviously we want to go back to the community, but on top of everything else, we also want you guys to get something from it, right? We want to get from that is that behavior mindset that is necessary now to be innovative and creative and bring value from that. So that's one of the things that we're also excited.
Great, it's an investment in education. Okay, awesome. So I'll go through this pretty quickly because I think a lot of your stories probably are very similar to Priya's story. This was kind of Erica's. So please correct me if I get it back.
Go for it.
But
You've heard me tell it a couple times.
Yeah, I've heard you tell it a couple. So we see Priya as one of those students who kind of missed out on an experience, on a positive, didn't have that influence of this positive experience of engineering to be able to opt in when it came time to make that decision. She had all the things that we think would make a great engineer, but I think it was her dad that told her, no, you need to go and become a doctor.
He actually said her physics mark wasn't high enough. And that really hit home for me. Pri and I are the same age. She did a bio degree and then got her MBA and then went on to do amazing overseas work. And she's just a really dynamic, smart, innovative individual. We had the same physics mark in high school, and I became an engineer and she didn't. Her dad was an engineer, and she was discouraged for whatever reason, not trying to fault her father. I think he maybe gave her the right advice that he felt was, the right thing to do. But at the same time, what a perfect example of someone who would have been an amazing engineer if she had had different messaging and different influencing at that critical age.
Yeah, great. We talked about it already. So some benefits, we kind of talked through a lot of these ideas as well. So let's see if there's anything we missed here. Leadership, project management, communication, some of the stuff we were talking about investing in you guys. Getting in touch with that meaning behind your career choices. So a lot of you are in school still, so thinking back to why is it that I'm thinking this? Is this the right fit for me? What are the options that are open? And going through that own personal kind of questioning and inquiry yourself is going to make you be a better role model for the it's really kind of cool the way that works. Greater job satisfaction. So when you can get excited about what you're doing, you're kind of excited to come into work. And then we talked a little bit about, what does it take to ship a box of soap, right? There's more to it than just going in and putting it on the shelf. So some brand visibility and having a bunch of excited, geared up P&G employees. Oh, something's coming up. We have a meeting.
We have a meeting. It's canceled.
Yeah.
So I'll just share a quick story about, speaking of what it takes to ship a box of soap. My very first job out of university was working in an automotive factory. And it didn't sound too glamorous, right? I think some of us have this idea of there's cool engineering jobs and then there's not so cool engineering jobs. This was definitely on the not so cool side. It was a big, dirty factory. The management were always fighting with the union. There were tons of problems. But I loved it. It was so cool because I could go out there and solve problems, and I could, I worked in the quality department, so my job was to calibrate people's gauges. And I was like, hey, I'm making people's lives better because their gauges work now, and they can trust the reading that they get when they're doing their quality checks, right? And on top of that, I was, then I went on and got a better job at a better company, and I was involved with the launch of the 2001 PT Cruiser. So I don't know if you remember those cars. They had the cool retro-looking wood paneling on them. We were making the water pumps for those cars. And when I sort of pulled my head up from the day-to-day chaos and craziness that was happening in the factory, I thought, hey, we're making these little parts that go inside these little components, that go inside these cars that people are driving around. And because I did my job right, and all the people in my factory did their job right, people can get home because their water pumps are working properly and their cars aren't breaking down. And that's really cool. You get to make a contribution, and you get to see that connection. And you can choose not to see it. You can choose to see the chaos and the craziness and the stress, or you can look at the meaning behind what you're doing and the impact behind it. So love that, Mina, you're already seeing that. You kind of put that together on your own. And that's the kind of thought process we want to kind of light up for each of you, whatever that might be within P&G or anything you do in your career. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it Erica said in the introduction? We reach thousands of volunteers. What is it that we do differently? So talked a little bit about it already. We use messaging. So it's not just a thing we say. It really is a strategy. It's embedded into the design of everything. It's kind of core, standardized, coming from some engineers, we like that, into the work that we do. Evidence-based method, so we're not just, although we're trying to connect to our personal stories and our personal experience, and we talk a lot about creating an experience for the young people, for the audience that we're going for, there's still some some thought behind some research and data that goes into the specific design of what we're doing. Promote innovation in outreach. So I'm not talking about coming up with an innovative solution to a design challenge. I'm talking about innovating the way we do the outreach. So instead of using the same messages that we hear happening over and over again today, and the typical events that we tend to see, which are go build a bridge and break it down. That's very limited in the amount of reach and impact that you can have. So let's be innovative in the way that we're doing our outreach and the way we're designing our outreach. So we're really big on that. Looking beyond diversity into why it matters. So creating a pipeline for P&G, that's important, right? It's one thing to just say we need more girls in STEM or we need more women in engineering. Why? Like, you need to connect back to that why so that it's going to have a lasting effect. It's going to have an impact. Using a whole systems lens, so we really we don't like the siloed approach. We like that whole holistic view of what's going on, and shifting the focus away from the activity to the experience. So this is something that we find most of the volunteers we train are engineers or connected with engineering technology in some way. So, and ourselves, we're engineers, so we get it. We want to know the details and the nuts and bolts and when do I do this part and how many popsicle sticks should I have and all that. We get it. But if that becomes the focus of the people organizing the event, then they're missing out on this amazing opportunity to create an experience for the people that are going to be there. So we're trying to shift the mindset away from the logistics of execution to how can we create an experience that includes the messaging that we're looking for and the inclusive messaging as well. So that's the last element. And then what to expect. So we wanted to just take a few minutes here to recognize that, it sounds like you guys are all fairly far along in this process or in this kind of mindset, but for a lot of people, it can be really uncomfortable. Getting up in front of a group of kids, for one, is uncomfortable. Can be uncomfortable for some people. I said I have 3 kids, and I still, you never know what you're going to get when you get up there in front of a group of kids. So that's uncomfortable. But what we want to encourage you to know, or to kind of understand or embrace, is this idea that when you get out of your comfort zone, that's where the magic's going to happen. That's where we're going to connect to those ahas. We're going to, the light bulbs are going to go off. Oh, I never even thought about that. Or the learnings are going to happen. The skills are going to be developed. The connections with students and with each other are going to strengthen. So we're going to really encourage you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So just kind of keep that in mind as we talk through different things today. And as you're standing up there for the first time in front of the kids, it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's normal.
How many people are a little nervous about this? Just be honest. Like a little nervous about maybe getting up in front of kids, feeling the need for some tools. Okay, cool. And the rest of you are like, no problem. Piece of cake.
You're not being honest.
That's fine. That is actually great. And I think what Becky's referring to is not just the fact that you're getting up in front of kids, it's also the way that we're asking you to show up. Because it would be easy, to be honest, to hide behind the script and go, okay, kids, go over here, do that, right? And just kind of bark orders at them and say, okay, you're going to do this. And, you kind of hide behind the teacher sort of thing. That would be one way to do it. And we feel that that would not be taking advantage of the opportunity to create that experience, that to role model and make those connections with those students. So we're asking you to be really real and to talk about yourself. I, for one, have no problem talking about myself. It's totally fine with me. But we do recognize that for some people it is a little uncomfortable. So that's all we wanted to say here. If you're nervous, don't worry about that. We're here to help you, and we're going to support you and give you lots of practice. And so by the time you're actually doing it, it'll be something that you're excited to do. Like a bit of a leap, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And scary in a good way.
Things will go wrong. When you do the activity, something will go wrong, and it's okay. I've never had a kid come up to me and say, you didn't follow the blah. Like, they don't care. They'll usually come up before. You're like, that sounds great. Yep, that's what I meant. So anyway, so enough about that. Now we want to get you guys moving a little bit. We've been kind of sitting talking through a lot of kind of deep stuff. So we're going to do we're going to make it pretty quick.
Very quick.
We're a little behind. A quick activity. So I'm thinking pairs.
Cool.
Might work well.
Yep.
So just break off into pairs. We're going to, in the bed.
That's right. I'll be back. It's pairs again.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Sorry.
What are we going to do? Okay, so we're going to do something really simple. One of the things we like to also do when we're designing activities is keep things low. I know we want to encourage technology, and we have one of our workshops is around technology, which is really cool. But when we keep things low tech, less things can go wrong. So what we're going to do for this is just have you guys build a newspaper cover. So you're going to be in pairs. Maybe with another person.
She went to lunch.
Oh,
She'll be right back.
Okay. So in pairs, we're going to hand out some newspaper. Your criteria is going to be that the tallest tower is the winner. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Is that enough?
Oh yeah.
We have 5 minutes. Okay. We'll give you 5 minutes. So you're limited by the amount of newspaper you have, and you will also have a designated amount of space that you can work with. Okay. So that's all I'm going to tell you. You get 5 minutes. I'll give you some warning.
Tallest possible? Tallest. Okay.
Tallest.
You have one design criteria.
Yeah.
It should be easy.
And
What's the record? Since you guys have done this competition.
see, I don't know. I think it's pretty like how it's feeling. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to you figure it out.
5 minutes. There we go. Go.
Now I'll come around to you. Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Does it have to stand by itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Freestanding.
Okay.
Like before, and then
Yes. Yeah. We need to do a tallest tower. I have a.
You have 4 minutes and 20 seconds. You get, let me hear it.
yeah, that's
So how big a bag? Actually, smaller. Or actually wider.
Okay. But I think there. Yeah. I'm guessing those are.
So maybe we should pause the recording.
Yeah.
While we're doing the extra.
Flickery thing. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I just feel like you don't need to own responsibility for everything that happens. You can only do so much, right? To help keep things on a positive track, and the teacher will be a big help for you in terms of that.
And you don't necessarily know that the words coming out of their mouth is going to create a negative experience. Like it might just be a behavioral thing, and you still, when they think back about that day, they're not going to necessarily remember that one specific detail, but if they remember as a whole, I had a great experience, then that's what's important.
Yeah, and feedback from you, I think, will mean a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe more so than coming from the teacher.
Yeah. Ready?
Yeah.
Move on? Go. Okay, so let's go.
All right. Are we sitting down again?
If you want, it's up to you guys. Yeah. You're welcome to sit or stand. This is you. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we've had a chance. Would you mind just minimizing the?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, that's okay. So just a really quick survey. How many people have had some sort of engineering outreach done to them or around them? Did anyone have someone come to their classroom? Kevin, can you just tell me quickly about it?
Yeah,
what was it like? What was the experience?
It wasn't actually at my school. It was at the program levels, right? Like so.
Okay.
They came in. They told us about what EWB did, and then they just
EWB.
And then they just hosted an activity similar to the one we were and it was just really cool hearing them talk about it, and then it was also fun getting hands on, right? And that's what really got you thinking about it.
Cool. So it sounds like you had a positive engineering outreach.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So what I was looking, did you have something?
No, I'm trying to think about it in high school. I don't think I was exposed to it at all. My brother did go into engineering. But my brother went into engineering.
Oh, wow.
We need to go into engineering. But it wasn't even on my radar. I always thought I would be a lawyer. But engineering is what's interesting is that I find I speak with lawyers who know more than ever. Especially when it comes to like designing things from the ground up and what things to do and how to impact. Yeah, exactly. Patterns will work.
That's really interesting. It's sort of funny, and we're going to get into this a little later when we talk about our own personal stories about like what I thought I would be when I grew up and then what I am. So I'll say personally, I was really stuck between journalist and astronaut. And in the end, I mean, what I do now is telling stories about engineering, and I feel like the astronaut part is more figurative, obviously, than physical, but we're talking about moving into different worlds and, touching different things through innovation. So I feel like that initial thread that you had, that thought that you had about what you wanted to do when you were little, it does show up later in life if you're willing to kind of be open-minded about that. But anyway, that's a little bit of a side note too. The point of this slide here is to talk about the engineering outreach that's going on, and it sounds like some of you had great experiences, some of you had no experiences with getting some exposure to engineering as kids. What's going on now can really, some of it can be very misaligned, we'll say that. And it could be, we feel it's often very well-intentioned engineers coming in and saying, look, this is what engineering is about. We're going to get you to build a tower. We're going to get you to build a bridge. Becky mentioned complicated bridges. Everyone builds a complicated bridge. There you go. All right. You went into engineering anyway, so that's pretty good. I personally would not have been interested in building a bridge at all. I'm a materials engineer. I don't really care about bridges. That wouldn't have been my thing. And if I, as a kid, had that equation implanted in my head, engineering equals bridges, then I'm like, okay, thanks for no thanks, kind of thing. Whereas engineering is really, as you know, it's so much more than that. So we want to take an activity and we want to add a message to it, right? We don't want it to be accidental what the kids walk away from going, oh, engineering is about building bridges, or oh, engineering is, it's only for men because I just had 2 men come to my classroom and speak to me about it, right? These are the connections that kids make, and we want to be really careful that we are, to the extent possible, we are delivering that message to them in a very intentional way. So activity plus message equals impact. Little equation for you there. Yeah, we're going to get into the specifics, so I'm good with that. All right. So again, I mentioned evidence-based methods. The National Academy of Engineering in the States, in consultation with many other engineering bodies around the world, came up with something called they've done the Grand Challenges of Engineering. Have you seen those? We should talk about those later because they're really cool. That's a really good way, especially high school students that are kind of aware of the world. They like to hear about that. The other cool thing that the NAE did was came up with this Changing the Conversation campaign. So what they did was they put these messages and several others in front of thousands of people, young people, older people, men, women, everybody, and said, which of these are most appealing to you? And these were the top 4 that came out. So one default explanation we might hear about engineering, or we might have given ourselves in the past, is engineering is math and science in the real world. I know I used that one myself when I was in high school. And it kind of makes sense, right? When you're in university and you're taking your calculus and taking thermodynamics, it's math and science in the real world. You say that to a kid, someone in grade 7 or grade 10, they're going to be way more literal, right? They don't necessarily have that that frame of reference to think in that abstract way and to understand how those things play out and what those connections are. So here's a better way to talk about engineering, basically. So the first one here is all about a diversity of challenges. So back to those grand challenges of engineering I spoke about. So climate change, personalized learning, affordable housing. There are 12 of them actually, and I can only think of 3 right now. But anyway, these are diverse sets of challenges, and they need a diversity of thinkers. There is a place for you. And I think sometimes engineering kind of prides itself on being, we think we're really smart, and we think that, we're kind of awesome, engineers rule the world, that kind of thinking. That's great to be proud of what you do, but we have to be careful when we're speaking to the outside world, especially kids who are maybe thinking to themselves, do I measure up? Could I belong in that? Could I do that? Right? We don't want them to get on the wrong end of that message again, right?
So even at that age level, so thinking about grade 9 and 10,
yeah,
dealing with a lot of self-doubt.
Absolutely.
So that's so we have to just reinforce the message.
Yeah.
Right. Alleviate self-doubt.
I would say, yeah.
How do you spot it, and how do you spot that self-doubt? How soon should you start talking these messages when you go into the classroom, and then over the successive sessions, like what should you be looking for to see a change happen?
Excellent question. I think anytime you have an opportunity, you want to normalize what they're feeling. If this is true for you, if when you were in grade 9, you were not so sure about your academics, or you weren't so sure where you belong, say that. Because you to them, you've made it. You're a success already in their eyes. You might not feel that way every day, but you are a role model, right? You've got something that you can show to them and you can model for them. So absolutely, I would say first thing is normalize it for them. Say it's really normal to not really understand where you belong and to be thinking about that. If that's how you're feeling, that's okay. You can still make it because look what I did. You can tell a little bit about yourself there, right? I think this message, there is a place for you, is really smart because it's very simple, but it flips that whole idea of we're smarter than you, we're better than you, we're taking care of all the important stuff, as engineers, right? It flips that around and says, you're welcome. We want you to come join us. I don't know how else to say it. There is a place for you, right? There's this inclusive, welcoming, encouraging kind of impulse with it. So again, this isn't necessarily about recruiting engineers or saying you have to sign up and do this, but if you choose to and you want to and you're as excited about this idea as I am, there is a place for you. You can belong here if you want to. Kind of thing. That answers the question. Beautiful. Engineering and technology shape the world around us. So I think this one's really fun to talk about in terms of just things we take for granted as everyday, as everyday as running water or sliced bread or the internet. These are huge things that shape our lives. They shape the way societies form. They shape the way we eat, sleep, work, spend our free time. What was the world like 50 years ago? Why is it different than how it is today? What's it going to be like 50 years from now? What kind of technologies are going to be around that are going to change people's everyday habits? That's a really fun conversation to have. And I would love, again, you're going to have some choices to make when you decide what you want to speak about in your classroom, in your classroom visits. The things that the kids come up with sometimes are amazing, right? Like, what's the next generation of technology? What's that going to look like? Get them to say what they think. But again, hammering home the point that engineering is pervasive. Even though you might not even know the word, you might not know any engineers personally, the effects of what they do, what we do, are all around us. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty powerful. Creativity and imagination. Someone already mentioned creativity. Was that you? See? Gold star for you for already knowing what that connection is. And again, sometimes I enjoy the cognitive dissonance that we can create here by saying, you thought that STEM and engineering was all about logic and analytics and it was cut and dry and boring. No. It's about vision. It's about taking an idea and turning it into reality. That's what it is at the core. That's design. That's amazing. It's cool. And so when you use those words that sort of clash with the pre-existing stereotype that they might have, and unfortunately those stereotypes start early. There's research that shows that as early as years old, kids are already starting to respond in a certain way to STEM engineering. You can bust that up and get them to think about it. Even better if you can bring an example, right, of where creativity interfaces with engineering and what that means. So this last bit here, it's more about impact, I would say. So safety, health, and happiness, I think are the three most important words there. And saying we're taking care of people around the world. It's people working for people, again, kind of turning that idea that it's all about technology and gadgets and stuff. And engineers and technologists make a world of difference. So that make a world of difference part, that's been a National Engineering Month campaign slogan before. Now it's there's a place for you. So again, these are all very well tested, very well marketed messages, and we encourage you just to keep these in your head as you're talking to the kids, as you're thinking about the stories you want to tell, and use them. You don't necessarily need to say them any of this word for word, but take it, think about it, play around with it in your head, think of some examples from your own lived experiences, and use those to bring across these points. So there's your tool number one. Changing the conversation. So again, some sort of general ideas, and obviously education is in itself a whole science and an art. Teachers spend years figuring out the best ways to teach. We're going to teach you in one slide here. There is sort of this old school, I guess more, it's called a directive approach, where you get up and you're sort of almost speaking down, right? You're like, I'm the expert, I will tell you. You know, you're the ones with the blank heads, I will fill you with knowledge kind of thing. This flips that around again and says communication is engaging, information is shared back and forth. Teacher, or in this case facilitator, volunteer, right? Yourselves are going to give solutions. Instead, you give them the materials, go, figure it out yourselves, then tell them how you did. And I will help you reflect on that experience, right? So it's really kind of a different idea than that sort of old-fashioned teaching model. Instead of answering questions, ask them questions. So easy, right? If you don't know what to say, it doesn't matter. Just have a bunch of questions and see what they say. Follow them where they go. There's so much there. Teacher, or in this case facilitator, is the expert versus people learning from one another. So again, I think I really want to stress this one, that when we do a job interview or when we put ourselves up on LinkedIn, we lead with our credentials, right? We lead with our strengths. I'm a go-getter. I'm a team player. Right? You're saying me. This is who I am. This is what I know. This is what I have to offer. In this case, you're doing something a little different. You're trying to show them what's inside of themselves and how you can sort of reflect back something that they have in themselves. And so it's about learning from each other. For you, Tanya, to use your example earlier, to say, I struggled with self-doubt when I was in high school too, right? We never put that on your LinkedIn profile. However, it's a very effective way to connect with your audience. So you see what I'm saying? The goals are different. So you're not going to lead with your credentials. You're not going to lead with your strengths. You're going to lead with your humanness, and then bring in the engineering stuff along the way. For sure.
So, how do we deal with situations where the students themselves are just quiet? Like, they're not participating, actually participating in doesn't feel like they're empowered to speak. Have you ever considered that before? What could we do to break the ice?
With high school students, I think, let me just think about that for a second.
I was wondering, because I have a little bit of experience. So in my experience, generally when you have a group of high school students, I don't, how big are the class size? Is it 20 something?
We're somewhere between 25 and 30.
Yeah, there's generally always people that lead the conversation. You always have those, so like it'll never be a silent class, in my opinion. But then the key is being able to like get those silent ones to participate. And then a lot of the times, especially at that age, they're kind of shy to speak in front of the whole class. And then sometimes what I do is, while the activity is going on, I go and then I try to not pick on the silent ones, but I approach them a little bit more and get them talking. And then if you encourage the ideas, and a lot of times they have cool ideas, then they have more confidence at the end when you kind of come back together to tell their ideas a little bit more. And you could be very encouraging, right? If they don't say anything, you could mention their idea to the class and say, it was a good idea, and that really get their confidence up to get them to participate. But generally, in my experience, there's never like a whole class of 7. You always have to talk really much with the confidence.
I'll tell you, I'm an introvert, so I would be the kid that was quiet in the back. And so it didn't necessarily matter. I loved your example. It would be fantastic if someone can identify that, and if someone, like for me, a one-on-one conversation, no problem. Like I would react really well to that, and then to have them like say something nice about it in front of the whole class, I would just be like smiling inside. But even if that didn't happen, it doesn't mean I'm not having a good experience. I'm still taking everything in, and especially as an introvert, I just need more time to process. So I'm just absorbing. So as long as you're doing and saying the right things, and someone's not running out in tears or obviously upset, it could just be that they're just soaking it in. They're still getting the messages.
Yeah. I would say yes to all of that.
Yeah.
You can also, I think, talk to the teacher ahead of time about drawing them out and keep your expectations realistic. I mean, people might not be comfortable speaking up, and that's okay too. I think you could maybe use more of, giving examples, maybe say, has anyone ever experienced this, and get them to raise their hand. So there's some interaction without too much risk on their part. If you're feeling like you're really not getting any energy back, I mean, depends how much of a risk you want to take. So what are you stressed out about, or what do you care about, or what do you want to be when you grow up, or kind of switch up the tone, switch up the script, and see if you can draw people out. But again, I think I totally agree with what Becky said about just because they're not talking doesn't mean they're not getting it. And you can maybe have more successful side conversations with some people. That's good too.
Would you advise against asking them a question that is different from us?
Like asking one person in front of everybody else?
I mean, like if you're going around asking people, maybe focus on whatever and ask them to answer the question.
I just say be careful not to single them out. Like if you ask them and they are kind of turning away, then maybe move on to someone else, or but just
you want it to be a positive experience for them. So if they're not speaking up, there's maybe a reason why. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily pull on them too hard, but just see how the activity goes.
I found too, you have to be careful with when you're asking questions and kids giving answers. Sometimes the other kids can be kind of nasty and like laugh at their answers or something. So you have to be quick on your feet and come up with a reason why their answer was great, or thank you for being the first one, or like you have to kind of be on top of that stuff too for those kind of troubleshooting tips.
One thing that I also want to do really help, and I read about it too, is giving people a couple, like especially the introverts, and giving them like a minute to think through their answer, like just giving the whole class a minute before you actually ask the response. Because I found that to be really effective, because then you have a chance to sort of gather your thoughts, or even if you have to just like write it down, you can automatically.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah. And you're ahead of us. We do have surveys that we're going to get the students to fill out, and so know that just even if they're not giving you verbally what you're hoping for, you're going to get a lot of data in the form of those surveys as well. You can have a chance to get that feedback. So something that everyone wants to really have.
Are you doing this one?
Yeah, I think you get the idea here. So inclusive messaging, I am going to try and go a little quicker, right? Because we're
it's 11:30. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, these are buildings.
So what the idea here was around this idea that when we do engineering outreach, we may be unintentionally modeling existing inequalities and existing lack of representation. And we want to combat that in a strategic way. So we went and talked to some social psychologists, and they're awesome, really smart, switched-on people. There's a group in particular at the University of Waterloo that are very focused on representation in STEM. So they do a lot of experiments with their own engineering students, which is kind of fun and totally ethical, by the way. And there are lots of interesting interventions, they call them, so experiments or strategies that they've used at the university level. We're actually, in the interest of time, just going to talk about the K-12 applicable ones. But again, just know that when we're advising you to do certain things or to try certain things, this is the science behind it. So I'm just going to give you really quick overview, and just a note, because we don't have a super copious amount of time to get into all this, we do have a full webinar online that goes through these examples and the other ones as well. So we will send you that link if you want to check it out.
It's embedded into this presentation, Erica.
There you go. You can check it out later on. So here's one, and this was, again, I actually know a couple of these researchers, kind of cool, at the University of Waterloo. And basically the experiment revolved around a female student and a male grad student standing up in front of a group of students and modeling two different scenarios. One in which the man was dismissive of the woman, talked over her, maybe rolled his eyes, I'm not sure exactly, but basically did not model respect toward her. And then another scenario in which he did model respect toward her. He asked her questions, he gave him time to speak and respond, and how that actually played out differently than they wanted to say that. So when men or majority group members show respect for women and minorities, participants actually perform better. And so they saw, and again, you can look, we get into more of the details of the study, but that actually affected the women more when they saw the disrespectful behavior, particularly the guy contact. So they were not good, they were paid, they were not something like that, right? So when you're in your pairs, and again, we talk about representation, it's not just about representation, obviously, it's also about the why of diversity. As much as possible, when you're selecting your pair, you're going to go in pairs to do your classroom visits. If you can model as much diversity as possible in your pairs, that is, first of all, really good practice. And if you can just be aware of the dynamics and the message that you're sending by who is speaking, how much, and when, and how you're dealing with each other in front of the classroom. So some really tangible things you can do there. Girly role models. So we had this idea we want to encourage women in STEM. So let's make a computer engineer Barbie. And IBM, they did a hack a hairdryer campaign, right? So or they paint everything in pink. So there's some very yeah. There's a lot to discuss there about what is well-intentioned about these types of efforts, but what is also stereotype conforming and kind of condescending and actually not that helpful. And at the end of the day, girls and women don't need things to be pink in order to relate to them. I think we just need to be listened to and to give them the opportunity to contribute and to care about something. So the idea here is it's a really interesting study, but you just want to be relatable as a role model. I guess this is considering mostly to the female volunteers. When you speak about yourself, don't feel pressured to be overly feminine or overly not in your presentation of yourself. I actually had some girls say to me once, oh, I can tell you're an engineer because you're not wearing any makeup. Like, what? First of all, I was wearing a little makeup. But I was like, there's so much I love about this. I think it was grade 8. Yeah. So that's one of my opening lines is, can you tell I'm an engineer just by looking at it? And we can take that conversation in any number of different directions. We can talk about the ring. We can talk about the fact that I maybe don't stereotypically conform to what people think of in engineering. And I've gotten all sorts of answers like, oh, you're not a man in the 50s. No, I'm not. You're not wearing a hard hat. No, that's true too. Right? So it's kind of a fun, playful way to get at some of those stereotypes. The thing is the comment about the makeup. Anyway, moving on. Being relatable as a role model. And using examples that are not gendered. That's really good. So I used to use the example, because I'm a materials engineer, I would talk about hockey sticks and how we used to be made out of wood, and now they're made out of all these new fangled materials and that's better. And then I was like, wait a minute, am I just targeting because you like hockey? Am I maybe talking too much to the boys? Maybe I also need to be talking about I don't know, gardening, and then I was like, wait a minute, that's not really fair either, because maybe the girls don't like gardening. And so sticking to topics that are not necessarily gendered, and we've been told by kids we've spoken to, pretty safe to stick to movies, music, the environment, creativity, solving big problems, and helping people. All those are kind of fairly safe topics. And if you do end up using an example that is more gendered, quote unquote, which is very long conversation, we've talked about that for a few hours probably, just try and balance it out. What else have we got here? Okay, this is a great one, and it's very, very simple. So there is a school of thought, maybe most of us, some of us, might have grown up with the idea that either you got it or you don't, right? Either you're a math person or you're not. Either you're smart enough to be an engineer or you're not. And what more and more new research is showing us is that that's not the case at all. Like a lot of the time, if we have the work ethic and the diligence to keep trying, our brains can actually adapt and grow new neuronal networks, right? This whole thing, neuroplasticity, is a thing. If we believe in ourselves enough to know that we can accomplish new things and different things, rather than trying something and failing and going, I can't do that, to say, I can't do that yet, and I'm done. So it's a growth mindset that says, I'm acquiring new skills, I'm always evolving, I'm always getting better, and I can do new things. If I can't do it right now, doesn't mean I'll never be able to. Versus the fixed mindset, which is sort of the old school way of thinking that either you got it or you don't. And I think it's not hard to see how this plays into the diversity question as well. Because certain groups of people are encouraged to keep trying and to be good in math, right? And others are not. And so if we emphasize the importance of effort, persistence, and improvement over time, we are creating and opening up doors for people who might not feel that they belong or that they're good enough right now. This is a huge, huge thing you can do, is promote the growth mindset. So again, you said, what can you do? Sharing your own stories of failure and recovery. You've got tons of prestige standing up there. They're going to think, you're such a success. They're going to look at you. You can afford to give away a little of that and make yourself human. And talk about failure and recovery, mentioning the importance of continuing to improve, grow your brain, and giving them encouragement, right? Let's say their tower falls down. That doesn't mean that they're never going to be able to build a tower or they're never going to be able to complete that project, right? Emphasize what they did well and how they improved. If you can pull out those examples and show that back to them, that is super helpful.
It just gave me an idea because so one of the things that we noticed too is like environment matters, right? For kids doing well, thinking that they can do any of these, right? Here's the concern. So they leave that activity, they leave that class, and they kind of go back into their own environment, right? They're not surrounded by people who necessarily are encouraging them around this topic. Since we are going to have 3 times in class with them, right? There'll be different groups that there will be of us there, 3 times we're there. I am wondering if you could leave with them like a short story, a short article or something that when you come back the next time, right, you can start by talking about that or like write down this article, to do a connection, but also to start kind of continue opening kind of like the spectrum for them in the environment. So even though they're dealing with whatever environment they're dealing with, there's still a connection back to the area of possibility.
The stuff that during the workshop, and then we can follow up on stuff.
So creating some continuity between the workshops.
Exactly. Yeah. Even some stories of other people who, short stories of other people like them that have done, whatever their own personal stories are, right? Short stories.
It's a really good idea. Like it's the retention of the environment as well. Because basically you're saying is, it's all good environment, but it's only a few hours, and the next week it's gone. Like at least something that will remind them of that experience again, which will trigger that kind of mindset inside their brains.
I like it. Yeah, fantastic. So can we maybe work together, brainstorm as a group on what those little stories could be? They could be a little profile of one of us or a little anecdote. We're going to generate tons of content as we start talking. We've got exercises for all of you to consider and follow up on. So we can think about what those stories could be.
Even like positive stories get put on LinkedIn. That we could say, like, there's somebody in my community that's now done well, and short things like that could be really easy.
Love it. Are we all in for that?
Awesome. Your story could be like a mini game. the biggest thing of social.
Mini video, you're right.
Yeah, sounds great.
We gotta move on.
Sure.
Cool.
Let's do it.
Oh, there's
All
one.
right. Next. Yep.
Oh.
Oh, what can you learn when things don't go well? Okay, this is a good one too, around high standards and assurance they can meet those standards. So we've been talking so much about creating a positive experience, and we don't want the students to feel bad if they quote unquote fail. You give them a challenge and they can't do it. This research shows that if you hold high standards and show that the students won't be judged if they don't meet those standards, but that you believe that they're capable of doing it. So it could be a really simple thing, but just knowing you can do this, you've got this. You might not have worked out all the details yet, but sort of I believe in that kind of thing. That means a lot to kids, because if you lower the standard and you say, oh, okay, I guess you couldn't build this tower, so why don't you just build it? That's good enough. Okay, good for you, you did it. Like, that's kind of condescending, right? Like, you're not actually modeling that you believe in them when you do that, right? So don't give up on the kids who don't get it. Encourage them. Don't change the task. Keep encouraging them to learn, and they're more resilient than you think, and they're better able to handle failure, especially if you frame it in a way that is positive than you might think. I know this is a challenge, but you can do it. There's baking resilience right into who they are and what they're doing. When you think about it, that's kind of an awesome thing to do in life in general. Let's say that lands and they hear it and they feel it and they keep going, and that is a bad lesson. That's pretty awesome.
I say we use that all the time in business too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, working for you, but we want everybody feeling like they can accomplish what they're doing. Awesome.
So valuing diversity, again, there is evidence that shows that if we try to be colorblind, say, I don't see color or I don't see gender, that's actually kind of insulting, because you're not really validating those people's lived experiences and the ways that their lives are different. And it can actually be discouraging. So when you show diversity, when you talk about diversity in whatever way, and again, drawing on your own personal experience, that's happening here, saying we need everyone's contributions, join us, there's a place for you, inclusive language whenever you can. I struggle with this one to this day. I say guys sometimes. We try not to do that. Say people, folks, students. That's really helpful. When you model diversity and speak to the power of diversity. And again, this could be one of our anecdotes, right, that we use as we talk about the way that a team at P&G came together to solve a problem, and they could do it because they had people from different continents or different departments or, right, different skills backgrounds. That's a great way to help combat some of that messaging that says, well, I'm different, I don't fit in, I can't belong. It's like, no, you're different, that's great. Come on over and join us. All right, there's the webinar link. We're going to provide you these slides, so you're more than welcome to jump in. This is just a little taste, and we want to give you an understanding of where we're coming from when we give you some of the advice. And I see by the nods, I'm getting the sense this is all landing really well, so that's great. There's more where this came from if you're interested, and we'd encourage you to check out that webinar. Okay. Fantastic.
Do you want to
I can, it's not long, right?
No. Do you want to set it up while I'm loading it here?
Sure. Yeah, we're almost done. We just have logistics left after this. After this clip. So I mentioned we do National Engineering Month every year. We coach. Oh, do we have volume?
I don't know. I'll just turn it up really loud.
Okay. So we coach our volunteers to use these messages, right? So this guy, who's going to appear in a second, is a volunteer with his special engineering chapter in Thunder Bay, and he ended up on the local news in Thunder Bay. So this is from March 2016, and
She's all on the local news. Every single one of you.
we do a module on media training as well. So that's something we've included today, but absolutely to get that benefit out of the messaging, you can amplify it on a local news channel. Amazing. So we consider this one of our National Engineering Month. There you go. So, you take away that messaging, it could have been a very different experience, right? You add in that messaging, it sparks it, it makes it alive, and it includes as many people.
So we do have a whole section on storytelling we haven't done yet, and it's 10 minutes.
Right.
I'm just thinking, you guys are all pretty good on stories right now, so do we want to kind of just maybe come back to that for time? What do you think?
Let's maybe just go through it pretty quickly.
Okay.
You guys can go. Because I think knowing how to go into the solution and logistics, it's something that I've never done. I don't know if anyone else understands. You don't know how to approach that.
Okay. Are we okay? Well, there's food here, right? So that's a good sign.
So you guys can stay there?
Yeah.
All right. That's great.
No.
Oh, so you can stay?
Well, I can say yes.
Awesome. Okay.
So we've also made the offer, as I'm not sure if all of you know, that each of you are going to be picking an activity and picking a partner today and kind of getting your heads on to actually go into the classroom. We're going to stay over your lunch hour and go through the activity in detail if you need that. In fact, both Becky and I are going to take kind of coach you. So we have time to take us up on that today. And there's another reason for that. So I would say let's get through the content. We can do this relatively quickly because, as Becky said, I think we're all very natural storytellers, and we've really got it. We just want to give you a few more ideas. And then there are some logistics to take care of. So we'll combine maybe the coaching and the training a little bit.
Okay.
Finish up.
So you want to do your story?
All right. So there's me over there on the right-hand side, and somewhere in between being that baby that you see over there that has absolutely no hair at all, and being me, the engineer that you see before you, I went through a bit of an evolution that involved me figuring out that I was meant to be an engineer. And it didn't pick me right away. I didn't have a parent who was an engineer. It wasn't really obvious. It's not like I grew up with messages of engineering around me. In fact, the first time I think I heard the word engineer was in my high school guidance counselor's office, and they said, "You're good at math and science, and engineering's really hard. Maybe you should try that." Like, challenge accepted. Let's go. So it was not really until I got my PN, and I've been working in a couple of different industries, first of all in automotive manufacturing, later in mining, that I started to realize that engineering really is a good fit for me. And that's crazy, right? When you think about the fact that I had to go that far and that deep into my experience in order to reflect on what those connections were. So connecting the dots backwards, here's what I think makes engineering a great fit for me and why it was a good choice. So when I was about 7, I grew up in the country, and we after it rained, we would get these massive puddles in our driveway, and I loved nothing more than to put on my rubber boots and go out and make trenches and make all these like intricate little waterways between the different puddles and do the irrigation and prop it open with wood and stuff. And this was really fun for me. So
you didn't build bridges on them, right?
It's not build any bridges.
Okay.
But it was what I figured out from that was that I really loved getting out and doing things in the world. It wasn't enough for me to kind of think about having an impact. I wanted to create concrete change in the world that was outside of it. When I was 10, it was my turn to unload the dishwasher, and I really didn't want to do it. And so I designed, didn't build, mind you, but I designed on paper this elaborate system of conveyor belts that would take the dishes for me out of the dishwasher and over to the house where they needed to go. And I had figured out how I needed to have little partitions and how I would have a little arms here that would automatically unload the place without breaking them. I had thought through all of this, right? And I think my parents at the time thought, "Oh my goodness, child, so lazy, just go unload the dishwasher." Whereas I prefer to think of it as being innovative and being inventive, right? And looking to use my energy in ways that I cared about versus the thing that they wanted to do. So a little bit of non-conformity going on there already, along with the inventiveness. So then when I was 12, Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror" came out. I don't know if any of you know that song. A little young for some of you. If you'll find kids today, I find they all know who Michael Jackson is. He's kind of amazing. And that video about making a change in the world, and saying, if you want to make the world a better place, you do it yourself and then make a change. And this was in the 80s, and the famine in Ethiopia was going on. were all these photos and, images in this video of the suffering that was happening in the world, and I just thought, that's not right. I want to be a part of making a better world where people don't have to suffer like that. I want to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. And so later on, that manifested itself, not so much in, directly working with poverty, but in working with helping people and saying, when I design something or when I do something, it's going to have a positive impact on people. That's so good. And then finally, when I was 15, I'm in high school now, and I saw the periodic table for the first time in my first chemistry class. I was like, wow, that is awesome, because everything that is everything is on there. That's everything in the universe, and all we need to do is put together these things in the right combination, and then we're going to have whatever we need. Like, this is the message. Like, it's so powerful. And so when I put together all of those sort of data points, things that I noticed as a kid, ways that I've grown up to be and still am as an adult, that shows me why engineering is so, you don't have much to do with engineering on the surface of it, but that's sort of what I figured out after the fact. Comments, questions on the story I just related?
Erica's been telling her story a long time, so she's really good at it.
One of the things I noticed is, and for good reasons, is the real focus around the word and subject of engineering. But as we go into these classes, I don't know exactly what way, but the ingredients to become an engineer are the math, science that they are exposed to. Sure. So one of the things as I was growing up was even just understanding what engineering is. And at grade 8 or grade 9, it's like a conceptual word that people use that you can't really relate to. There may be one course, which is very, very narrow. I remember taking a quote engineering course where people in the shop built motherboards or LED lights that blink. So people have this kids have this very narrow sort of understanding of what is engineering. And I was wondering, as we go in with the semester track, whether we should add in components that encourage them to be interested in the components of engineering, which are like the sciences, the theoretical, the biology, chemistry, physics, and the math, so that at the end of the day they are equipped to choose the field of engineering, which requires all of the.
Yeah. I would say yes, with a reminder that engineering is not just math and science, right? Those are the ingredients, they're the prerequisites, and I think the universities really emphasize those prerequisites, and they say, like, basically engineering is math and science. We really kind of put an asterisk beside that because it's math and science and creativity and design and having an impact on people and convincing people to like your idea and being on the phone with suppliers around the world, right? There are all these different aspects of, human systems and psychology and things that come into engineering that don't come into the pure sciences. So absolutely, and I think, me standing up and saying, I'm a girl and I love this periodic table, like that's a cool thing in itself. But you'll notice how not all my examples are STEM related, right? Some of them are about helping people and about having that ambition to change the world and sort of picking from different fields that are, yes, the STEM, but also all the other stuff. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's kind of why we're anticipating maybe it could be a little tricky, that slide earlier about the comfort zone. We're used to focusing on the time you can, right? Where's the math? Where's the science? Where's the equation? Where's the answer? We're asking you to talk about yourselves as human beings as well. So
I think kind of our stories, right? Do you have anything like questions that we could ask ourselves?
Oh, right.
Thank you. We're going there right now. So I can do. Oh,
go ahead.
Okay. So again, we've talked about this already. There's a place for you if you want to come to it. It's not necessarily to recruit them, but to know that it is an option, and that'll change their relationship to technology and engineering as they grow up. A human connection, a context, breaking stereotypes, like our favorite thing ever, and demystifying and removing any intimidation they might feel. So, yes, more benefits. I'll read that. I think we're all convinced on the benefits of storytelling. Yeah. Okay, good.
It's fun. We haven't really talked about
it. It is fun. It's totally fun. When can you use this? Anytime you want. Obviously during your classroom visits, but also with any young people you have in your life.
And the more you use it, the better you get at it. So take advantage of any situation where you can practice. And think of it as practice, too. Yeah. Okay, so here we go.
This is what you wanted, Tanya. This is exactly it. So it doesn't correspond to the format of the story that I just shared, but this is part of a larger, again, online module we have called Telling Your Engineering Story. So these are some prompts that we found very effective to get people thinking along those lines. And then if you want to do it like, this is me at this stage, this stage, this stage, you can assemble it that way if you want to, but you don't have to. The format is really up to you in the way that you feel most comfortable and most energized telling it yourself. If you're bored, the kids are not going to be interested, right? So, my name is Erica, and I'm a change agent. One way I guess that. I'm an innovator.
So it should be engineering, right?
I would say not. Yeah, I would say it has more to do with how you see yourself on a broader scale. So this is very much the path I went down, right? To talk about myself. Ever since I was little, I've loved, been fascinated, or wanted to know more about. Again, it doesn't have to be STEM specific, but you can pull out reasons why. One of my favorite memories, something you did in high school, maybe a club or an activity, and this is quite practical in a way because you're creating a connection with any of those kids who are in that activity now. And again, the more you can think about, maybe robotics is something that kind of naturally goes with engineering. Mention robotics if you did that, but then maybe also mention chess club or mention intercultural club or mention the tennis team or other stuff that you did that kind of doesn't go with the stereotype. Yeah? I chose engineering because, so I gave you a little bit of that as well. What I didn't know about what I didn't know at the time, that's gold, right? What did you not know now? What did you not know then that you know now that you figured out? Something about yourself or something about the job, something you really enjoy. I used to worry that, back to normalizing something that you can. But I've realized, so you're giving them that initial, yeah, I was there too, and now I'm on the other side of that particular challenge, right? I've come through it, and this is what I know now, and this is what I can tell all of you that you still feeling that. The thing that I dream about, and this can be related to your job, can be something that you see in AI or blockchain. Tanya did a beautiful job of talking about democratizing technologies to make a better world. That's beautiful. That is a perfect way to put something forward that's of personal interest to yourself, but also aligns with relating it to your engineering background. Something I really love at P&G, so before we start talking about the company in a positive way, positive and very authentic way, right? Something that a way that P&G really supports that or aligns that, supports you to be your best so that you can do that thing that you love. And again, it could be STEM related, could be STEM adjacent, business related, right? It could be about traveling, and I love talking with people of all different cultures. I love solving problems in teams, getting everyone's perspective, and sitting down and figuring out how to make a better product, whatever that looks like. My advice to you, so you might have already touched on this earlier. This is great. I don't think, I've never had a kid actually ask me for advice. They don't ask, but that doesn't mean they're not listening. That doesn't mean they don't really want to know what you would want them to know. And this is kind of a cool exercise. Becky mentioned earlier how it benefits you as well. You're almost talking to yourself 5 or 10 or 12 years ago, however long it might have been, right? What is the thing that you wish you'd known then? So each of these prompts are going to take some time. So we encourage you, and that's why we want to come to you ahead of your first classroom visit give you some time to marinate on these things. And if you feel comfortable, you can chat with a coworker, chat with your outreach partner, chat with someone else in your life, a friend, who can help you sort of say, yeah, I do see that in you. And here's what I see as well, right? There's a little bit of a self-discovery process that you can go through in order to really get the most out of it. So, take your time. You don't always know what you're looking for until you find it. And Becky pointed out those 4 data points that I rattled off just like that. It took me a while to figure out, and that's okay. The dots will connect backwards at some point. I mentioned in contrast to LinkedIn, you're going to lead with your story, not your credentials. So you are going to mention, obviously, your education and where you work and all the impressive things about you. That's great and that's fine, but you won't start there. That's a really deliberate strategy because you're looking to create that connection and that accessibility with the student. Relatable, accessible, break down stereotypes, and know your audience. And again, you're going to get more comfortable with it. You're going to start to know things. Certain ages, certain communities, right? You'll start to see trends and you'll start to understand and be able to come to them a little bit more rather than just wondering about them. Okay, a few do's and don'ts here. We definitely recommend enthusiasm, whatever that looks like for you. Some people are very animated when they speak and some people are a little more chill, but make sure that you're infusing it with that meeting yourself. Do practice your story. We encourage you not to read it from anything or to be too structured in the way you tell it, but know where you're going with it. Descriptive, upbeat, energetic, short and sweet. We think 3 to 5 minutes is kind of the optimal amount of time to hold someone's attention. You don't want to rhyme something off as though it's a business presentation with lots of technical details. Again, be aware they might already be bringing a lot of intimidation and a lot of self-doubt to what you're describing. You don't want to add to that by throwing a bunch of jargon that they're not going to get, right? That would be fine if you were just looking to make yourself look impressive, but that's not what we do. It's very tempting once you go down memory lane and you start thinking about, and there's this one time when I was a kid and I went swimming and this other thing happened, right? You get on a roll, you might want to keep sharing. Really do try to focus on keeping it a nice tight storyline, something that's going to be very easy for them to digest and not get distracted with a lot of extra detail. And something else I think we all need to have judgment around how much to share as far as maybe your struggle. If it's something you're still struggling with, it might be a little too raw to bring it to the table, like I'm still struggling with feeling self-doubt or whatever. Find a way to make it positive and inspiring. And I would say focus on stuff that you feel you've already overcome. Because you want to be vulnerable and you want to be emotional to a certain extent, right? You don't want to bummer all the students. Well, we all have stuff we're still struggling with, right? So there's something just to be aware of. So I'm not sure we're going to have time for everyone to practice, but are you all comfortable taking these prompts and playing with them on your own time? Would that be cool?
Yeah, if you guys want, like, we could set up a meeting and then share our stories with each other, right? Something like that. Yeah? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I'll put that on my list.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. So we've got some FAQs and logistics. I'm wondering maybe, do you want to break and grab some food and come back and we'll go through that?
And what is thinking?
Thinking of how good it prepares and maybe just give a brief of the activity, right? But then I almost feel like we have enough time. We have like figure out how they want to structure that day.
Yes.
And what I would love them to do is be on call them side, and then run it through how they're going to structure that day.
I think that's a fantastic idea because I love that we can give them the opportunity to kind of sit with it and ask themselves questions about the activity and really think about it. I think that will really enhance their own experience instead of us telling them, here's how you're going to do it.
Okay.
I think that's fantastic.
Awesome. Love it. Cool. This is great. Good. Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Do you guys need to know where the bathroom is?
Pretty.
So Kevin, Yes. So let's sort of make sure kind of tax schedule here. Do you guys do